Hello, I'm Aaron Janse with the Minnesota Orchestra. I had the unique opportunity to visit MIA, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, to see the exquisite exhibition Botticelli and Renaissance Florence, Masterworks of the Uffizi, and learn about art and music of the time with the co-creator of the exhibition, Rachel McGarry.
This exhibition at the Minneapolis Institute of Art is a really special collaboration between MIA and the Uffizi Galleries in Florence, because the Uffizi Galleries has the greatest collection of Florentine Renaissance art in the world. We borrowed 46 works from the Uffizi. Many of the paintings, drawings, and marbles have never been shown in the United States before. The ancient marbles in the show actually have never left the Uffizi. So it's really, really exciting to see the works of the Renaissance artists next to the antiquities and really look at the works that they studied from ancient Rome and how they incorporated this influence into their paintings and drawings and prints in this era. And what was really exciting about this partnership is we brought together 18 scholars from around the world to work on the catalog. And we borrowed 46 loans from the Uffizi, and then a dozen works from our own collection are mixed into the exhibition. And we had new scholars studying the works, and we learned a lot, actually. Here we are looking at Sandro Botticelli's stunning Palace Taming the Centaur from around 1482. Botticelli painted this in Florence, and it's on loan here from the Uffizi Galleries. We think that Botticelli painted this for Lorenzo the Magnificent de' Medici, for his young cousin, Lorenzo di Pierfrancesco, who was getting married to Semiramide d'Appiano. Botticelli created these mythological pictures, which is one of the reasons he's so celebrated today. They're really novel for many reasons. First of all, the scale, then the subject matter. He's a nuanced interpreter of mythology. There's many theories about what this means. Some people identify her as Camilla, the virgin warrior princess who is in Virgil's Aeneid. But that's part of their appeal in the period because the humanists around Lorenzo's court would have loved to have looked at works like this. They're kind of conversation pieces, and each offer their own interpretation about what it might mean.
So it didn't actually have a name.
Exactly. The painter didn't title it as far as we know. If he did title it, it's not recorded.
So what was the role of music during Botticelli's lifetime?
That's a really good question because we don't have a lot of works in this exhibition that show Renaissance music, but Renaissance music at the court of Lorenzo de' Medici was key, and it had an increasingly important role in society in this period, not just in sacred music, but actually in secular life and played a role in social life. And you hear about Lorenzo de' Medici writing carnival songs and singing to the accompaniment of lute. He actually played the lute. Dilettantes in Renaissance society actually were playing music and singing a lot, so it became a big interest in addition to retaining specialized musicians at their court and bringing composers from Flanders as well. So music was critical to many things about society there. We're looking at an ancient Roman fragment of a male torso. So this fragment is probably from the 1st century CE, so almost 2,000 years old.
Wow.
And there's a lot of torsion and chiseled musculature. The figure is actually a dancing faun. And we know that because he has this small tail on his back. So in the original, this is a Roman copy, and there's a number of Roman copies after a Greek original, but in the original, the full figure would have been playing cymbals. So his would have had one arm raised and one arm down, and he would have been playing music, and he actually had a clapper on his right foot. And it's kind of remarkable what the sculptor is able to achieve in this still stone sculpture. You really get the sense of movement through the torso and through the shoulders. And Renaissance artists really, really admired this and studied these ancient works. So this is the very first time that Botticelli's works have been shown alongside the ancient Roman works that the Renaissance artists studied and what inspired the Renaissance. So this Renaissance panel actually depicts an instrument. It's the lyre, and it's oversized. It's actually an antiquity in the Renaissance. They played it it was a much smaller instrument. It was actually you could hold it in one arm, the lira da braccia. So the painting shows two muses. It shows the muse of tragedy, and then on the left, the muse of music, orato. But what's really interesting is that the lyre was revived in the Renaissance, and they knew about the form based on sculptures that they were digging out of the ground and excavating. And the Roman sarcophagi often showed orato, the muse of music, playing the lyre. And it's a 7-stringed instrument that you would pluck with a plectrum. But what's really interesting in this panel painting is that Filippino and his workshop show that she's playing it with a bone. And this was something that some ancient musicians did. They plucked it with a bone. But in the Renaissance, they turned the lyre into a stringed instrument. They actually used the bone to play showing it as though they're playing it like, like a violin or a lute.
Oh, interesting.
So this is Sandro Botticelli's Adoration of the Magi. It's really exciting that it's in the building because it's never been shown in the United States before. He painted it around 1475. And one of the things that's so special about it is that it has the only known self-portrait of Botticelli. He's the handsome young man in the yellow cloak, and he looks right out at the spectator and brings you into the scene. So he's around 30 years old when he painted this. And then the other thing is that there are many members of the Medici family represented in this portrait. So you have the three kings who are bringing their gifts to the infant Christ. So the three kings had traveled very far from the East. The Medici family were great supporters of the confraternity of the Magi, so they did all these good works, and they would have all these civic and religious festivals, and when they would parade through the streets of Florence, especially on the day of Epiphany, which is January 6th, they would parade as the kings. And you can imagine that there would have been great pomp and pageantry when they were parading through these festivals, and there probably were trumpets and percussion and drums. A century later, after Botticelli painted this, would just marvel at this painting because Botticelli was able to show so much variety in this crowd of the spectators. They said it was the best portrait of Cosimo the Elder that existed. But look at how all the faces turn, and there's many different ages, many different expressions, and no one's shown from the exact same profile. You have people in a variety of poses, and so it was a real marvel to artists of how, and really a demonstration piece that Botticelli is showing off how imaginative he is and how skilled he is that he can show face from every different point of view.
It's interesting to think about what would the music have been like during those religious festivals.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing to see? They still do the festivals today on the day of Epiphany, but I imagine when you read through the documents of the kind of instruments that you see in civic pageants in the street, trumpets were very popular because they have powerful sound and they're great for outdoors, and drums. And even the government employed trumpeters and drummers. A lot of the courts had their own musicians, and music was just a part of civic life, religious life, and political life.
Among these great masterworks, I played a beautiful piece for violin by early opera composer Gluck from his opera Orfeo and Eurydice. It was written and premiered in Vienna in 1762, so it's quite conceivable that my violin, made in Vienna circa 1750, could have been played in the very first performances. It is truly breathtaking to see Botticelli's work in person. His vivid colors are more lifelike than any device or screen could ever produce. Seeing his paintings in person is much like witnessing a great live performance. Somehow the humanity of his paintings leap out of the canvas much like a symphony of Beethoven, Mahler, or Sibelius leaps off of a score.
This is such a special opportunity to see works from the Uffizi here in Minneapolis. The Medici family patronized and supported the arts, music, poetry, literature, philosophy, and it became one of the most exciting moments in the Renaissance. And it's just an important period in the history of music, art, and culture.